If you could start recording, Jonathan, too, for some reason, it won't allow me. So I'm guessing that would be in your.
Okay. Also, YouTube would also record it, just the underlying function of it. So, but right. I'll also record it and then I can send it off to you.
Perfect.
As well.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, well, seeing it's 2 o'clock, I think we'll get underway. I'm going to start this meeting because it's new committee. So we'll go through a few things. We're going to do some orientation stuff. We're going to do introductions. We have to do a procedural bylaw presentation, and that's a recording. I have Jonathan, who's a planner with City Planning Department, helping me out with the IT part of it today. So thank you, Jonathan, for your assistance on this. I will tell you also, I think you probably heard us talking that the meeting is being recorded and it is also being live streamed to YouTube. That's the way things are done these days. So that's new for us, but that is the way things are done. I think we'll start with introductions. I have written out names here and we'll just go through as I call them out just to make sure we don't miss anybody. So for the benefit of the new folks to the committee, my name's Nancy Scott. I'm the accessibility coordinator with the City of Sault Ste. Marie. My office is at the John Rhodes Community Center. Hopefully we'll get to a point where we can have some in-person meetings sometime in the future. I don't think it'll be in the very near future, but we'll shoot for that maybe for the latter part of this year. I'm available to you if you have any questions, if you have any concerns. I would urge you never to hesitate to email me or give me a call and we can address them. If you want some more orientation time, I can do that as well. So that's it for me. I'll go through and I'll call out the names just to make sure we get to everyone. And Margie, do you want to start out? I'll start with our two councillors. Margie, you can introduce yourself to the committee.
Hi, I'm Marchie Bruni, and I'm a councillor for Ward 4, and I represent the city.
And Lisa?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lisa Vezo-Allen, and I represent the city, and I'm the Ward 2 city councillor.
Excellent. I'm going to next go to Denise, and before I have Denise speak, I know that Denise isn't planning on standing for chair again, but she has put in her time very well, and I would like to thank Denise for the time she spent and put herself forward to be chair of the Accessibility Advisory Committee. So thank you, Denise, and you can now introduce yourself to the committee.
I'm Denise Elliott, and as a past chair, I'm glad to be a member.
Great. Diane?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Nice to see some new faces. Diane Morel. I've been with the committee for, I don't know, something like about 15 years. Not one of the longest standing members, but I've been around for a little while. Very happy to be back and see everyone.
Thanks, Diane. Next on my list is Craig Kohler. I'm not seeing Craig online here. So I guess for some reason he was not able to make the meeting today. Craig, I think, is one of the longest standing members on the committee too, and I'm sure he'll introduce himself at the next meeting, and we'll move on from Craig to Shannon.
I'm Shannon Gowen. I've been a member of the committee for several years now, and I really enjoy helping out with anything that I can to make the accessibility better in the city.
Don Calvert.
Hi, everybody. I'm Don Calvert. I've been on the committee for 18 years, and I enjoy volunteering in the community. I'm on other committees as well, and I'm also employed at Area Hospital as a registered nurse.
Derek?
I'm Derek Lavalli, longtime member. Nice to see everyone again. Greatly appreciated that everybody's out here.
Shirley, I see you're there.
Hi there, it's Shirley Polkan. I'm on the phone, but I don't have a camera, so you don't get to see my COVID hair. I'm the social worker for the renal program, probably for the last 30 years, with the Parabus committee that predated involvement and connection with the accessibility committee for over 20 some years, when we actually had a Parabus committee that didn't report to anybody, and have been with the accessibility committee for 4 years already. So I'm here to represent any of the dialysis patients, but also promote accessibility for anybody who's coming to Sioux Area Hospital. Thank you.
Well, I see now that we have Craig online. Craig, can you hear me?
Yes, Nancy, thank you.
Okay, so we're...
My apologies.
No, that's perfectly fine, perfectly fine. We were just going through some introductions, and I believe that we haven't got to any new members. So the ones that you may have missed are people that you're familiar with. So maybe you can introduce yourself to the committee for the benefit of the new members.
Thank you very much, Nancy. Craig Kohler, long-term member of the committee. I actually don't know how many terms I've served, Nancy. I'd have to look it up. Been actively involved with accessibility, predate this through the Barrier Busters group, and also have the privilege of serving on the United Way Board of Directors. Welcome to the new members, and God willing, we will eventually get to see each other in the same room without violating medical orders.
Great. Okay, Anne Marie.
Hi, I'm Anne Marie Burkowski. I have been on the committee, I think, 6 years now. I'm a parent of 2 children that have special needs. My son has a visual impairment and also autism. And I volunteered for Thrive Parent Advisory Committee and CNIB and other, the soup kitchen. And I am a social service worker by trade.
Thank you. Tracy Delizia, are you on the phone? Okay, I see. One of our returning members, I thought she was going to be online. Maybe she'll catch up with us in a bit. So Tracy's not here, and I received regrets from Dan Jennings. He's a returning member as well. He was unable to participate today. And we'll move on. Maybe Jordan DeRoche. Am I saying that right, Jordan? Maybe you can introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jordan DeRoche. I'm a new member on this committee, and I look forward to working with you all to improve the accessibility in the city.
Thank you. Carol Magnan.
Hi, I'm Carol Magnan, and I'm like Shirley. I'm not on the computer, so you can't see me. I'm on the phone. This is an interest of mine for many, many years. I have many members in the family and friends with visual impairments, and I'm thrilled to be on this committee.
Thanks, Carol. And is Debbie Renault on the line? Yes, I didn't see that Debbie had signed in either. So that's another new member that wasn't able to be with us today. So that's introductions. Again, it's great. I'm glad to be finally meeting, and we moving forward in the meeting today, we have to take care of a little bit of business and orientation stuff that we normally do. Just the next item on the agenda is term of office. I'm sure you're all aware that it is a 2-year term. I'll also point out that we elect executive at the first meeting of each new year. So the executive, which would be chair, vice chair, and chair of the site plan committee. Site plan committee is the only subcommittee that we have currently. That could change anytime though. If we needed another subcommittee for another reason, we'd certainly create that. We actually have the autism subcommittee that hasn't quite got going yet, and Anne-Marie Borkowski has stepped up to volunteer to be chair of that committee. We've been doing some behind the scenes work with the city departments and getting some information gathered together with the help of the Innovation Center. We will likely be talking about that at next meeting, and that subcommittee, the autism subcommittee of the AAC, will probably become active within the next few months. I'm working with Lisa Vezo-Allen and Don McConnell on getting that all straightened away at this time. So next, I'd like to go through a little bit of the committee member responsibilities. So the main role is to provide, or one of the roles, I shouldn't say the main role because it can work into so many other things. The main role, or one of the roles, is to provide recommendations, information, and advise councils and city departments in to prevent, identify, and remove barriers in the community. We're always open from any community member, but so much of the committee working together to come up with the best solutions for systemic issues within our community is the best way. I just want to point out that preparing for the meetings and RSVPing for the meetings helps out, so we can get to business at the meetings. Important to RSVP to make sure we have quorum, because for those folks that make their time available and when we get to the meeting and we don't have quorum, it's not really fair to those folks that have taken the time out, and yet we can't make any decisions or move forward on anything because of the lack of quorum. The AAC is obligated, or the city is obligated, to have the AAC to provide input on specific items as is required by the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act. They review site plans, which is done by the site plan subcommittee. And they report barriers when noticed in the community, city facilities, services, buildings, and processes. So we don't want to just think of it as physical barriers. There's often barriers in information and communication, or more systemic things in other places. A few other areas where the AAC should be consulted or is consulted from the city. They will be consulted when establishing, reviewing, and updating the multi-year plan. We talked about that at our last meeting in November. We talk about the multi-year plan a fair bit, and especially in getting the input for the barrier removal items. When the transit division is developing their design criteria for the construction, renovation, or placement of bus stops and shelters, the AAC is to have input on that. We will have transit at the next meeting, and that's one of the things we will be chatting about. The on-demand accessible taxi cabs is one of the things that's in the legislation, and we did do that in 2014. We held our public input session, reported to the Police Services Board. They changed the taxi bylaw to include the requirement for wheelchair accessible taxi cabs. There has recently been issues with the taxi companies not having their wheelchair taxis available all the time like they're supposed to. We're dealing with the city police, and they're investigating that. But for anyone who's out there and uses wheelchair accessible taxi cabs, I want to have that feedback or that input. So if you have an instance where you cannot get a taxi because there is not one available, and not because they're busy, but because they don't have one running, I certainly want you to note the time and the date and the company and provide me with that information so we can follow up, because we need that information to fix the problem. And this is one area. The next one that's in the list is to provide input on the need, location, and design of accessible on-street parking spaces when building new or making major changes to existing on-street parking spaces. This is actually something that we've had a meeting with Diane Morell and Don McConnell, and I have chatted about this, and we have a map now, and we're going to look at and have input from committee on where to put some on-street parking, accessible parking at the parking spots down on Queen Street. So that would be at the meters along the downtown core to have some accessible parking along there. We consult the committee before making any new major changes to existing recreational trails and help determine particular trail features such as we most often think about benches or lighting, or I often think of having accessible parking right at the trail as well. We get input when making major changes or making new outdoor play spaces. We're often talking about parks, and we've had some input on some big improvements to the parks around town. There was an accessibility grant a few years, probably 4 or 5 years ago now, that provided $50,000 to make improvements at Bellevue Park. And then the last one I'll speak of is to have input on the design and placement of rest areas along exterior paths of travel when making new or major changes to existing paths. And that's something that we've also been talking about in the absence of having a committee. It's something I've been talking about with city department to start adding more benches here and there along where we have these trails and the hub trail and down waterfront. And I think we had some input on the Bay Street renovation, or I don't think it's called renovation, is it restructuring? Or and there was a lot of benches placed around Bay Street, along Bay Street, and I've heard a lot about that. So at this point, I think Jonathan is working in the, is there any questions anyway? Let me go to questions first. Does anybody have any questions on any of those things that I spoke of? No, okay, well, if something comes up or you want to chat about something, like I said, don't hesitate to give me a call. We'll have Jonathan now start this. We have to do this procedural bylaw presentation. I did this if something comes up or you want to chat about something, like I said, don't hesitate to give me a call. We'll have Jonathan now start this. We have to do this procedural bylaw presentation. I did this if something comes up or you want to chat about something, like I said, don't hesitate to give me a call. We'll have Jonathan now start this. We have to do this procedural bylaw presentation. I did this if something comes up or you.
Sorry about that. I think I looped the audio.
That's okay. It gave something to listen to while we were getting straightened away.
Gremlins.
Are you ready for me to play it now?
Yes, we're ready. I'll just let the committee know that I did this procedural bylaw training information session, and there were a few things that came up that became apparent to me that we've been doing a little wrong over the years. So clerk's office wanted us to go through this this presentation, and then we'll chat about the few things that we need to change moving forward. Thanks, Jonathan.
All right, so thanks everyone for coming to the meeting procedures presentation for boards and committees of council. Appreciate everyone's time taking the time to learn about this. There are a few changes probably since the last time you've seen this presentation, and Rachel and I will go back and forth between the slides and go over the material. We'll just go over the material and we'll hold the questions until the end.
Volume isn't loud.
So the
The
first
volume
slide,
is our volume.
committees. So local boards and committees of council include.
Sorry, are you able to hear the volume?
Hi, Jonathan, the volume isn't good.
Wasn't coming through very well.
Are you able to hear audio, or is the audio quality low, or are you not able to hear audio at all?
You can hear the audio. I think everybody has to adjust their own volume settings.
Yeah, I think that's the issue. So I think on your computer, try to increase the volume. On the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, there is an image of a speaker. If you click that and then adjust the volume a bit higher. I'll give you a couple seconds and then I'll restart the video from the beginning. Councillor Bruni, on your end, you heard the audio fine?
Yeah, I heard the audio fine.
Okay. I'm going to resume the video now from the beginning.
All right, so thanks everyone for coming to the meeting procedures presentation for boards and committees of council. Appreciate everyone's time, taking the time to learn about this. There are a few changes probably since the last time you've seen this presentation, and Rachel and I will go back and forth between the slides and go over the material. We'll just go over the material and we'll hold the questions until the end. So the first slide, boards and committees. So local boards and committees of council include advisory and other committees or boards whose members are appointed by council for an ongoing purpose. Special committees appointed by council or the head of council at any time as deemed necessary. These special committees, after they fulfill their purpose, are often dissolved. And task force are, the majority of the members are staff. So the advisory and committees, we have a number of them. Most of you around the table today are part of those types of committees and boards. And there are some task force, again, that are made up of just staff, and they're a bit different. We wanted to talk to everyone about terms of reference. I know that there are a few committees that have come to council in the past couple of months, including the Environmental Sustainability Committee and the Cultural Vitality Committee. And because they are newly formed committees, they've brought their terms of reference to council more recently. So just to give that as an example, every board and committee should have a terms of reference. So those two are most recent, but there are others who do have terms of references. And the terms of reference should set the mandate, composition, the terms, etc. But they all need to come to council. There are some, though, that are statutory. So you don't necessarily need to have them approved by council in that same fashion, because, say, for instance, I think of the Committee of Adjustment or the BIA have statutory elements that come out of that. So it's a little bit different than, say, one that council has created, like the Environmental Sustainability Committee. So just to point that out. I'm going to hand this slide over to Rachel.
So we always like to sort of begin by talking about governance versus management, because a lot of board and committee members tend to get lost in what their role is. So a governance board will provide oversight and planning and is more concerned about the big picture, as opposed to operations, which are the responsibility of staff. So it's staff's role to bring operational plans, strategies, budget, those sorts of things, which will, of course, align with the corporate strategic plan that council's approved. But it's staff's role to bring those operational things for review by the board. And then the board or committee in its advisory capacity would make recommendations to council for consideration or approval of council. And just with that caveat that that wouldn't apply to quasi-judicial boards or committees. Like I would use the example of the Committee of Adjustment. Again, that does not come to council as a recommendation. They've got the statutory capacity. But generally speaking, for advisory boards and committees, they're making those recommendations to council.
Just a little bit on accountability and transparency. So there are a couple of acts that we want to draw your attention to around accountability and transparency. So the Municipal Act and the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act are two pieces of legislation that require us to be compliant with. And some of the information that comes out of that legislation helps shape our city's procedure bylaw and our code of conduct. So they all fit really well together. And we just wanted to draw your attention to the legislative requirements that we have to be compliant with.
Okay, so our sort of overarching procedure bylaw that is passed by council, that bylaw applies to the calling and proceedings of meetings of local boards and committees as well as council. So committee means any advisory or other committee, subcommittee, or similar entity of which at least 50% of the members are also members of one or more councils or local boards. And I would point out that a local board does not include police services boards or public library boards. And I know the library is on the call. Library has their own legislation as opposed to being under the umbrella of the Municipal Act, although it's best practice for them to be in line with council's procedure bylaw. But the overarching thing I want to say is that the procedure bylaw for council also applies to boards and committees.
So a meeting means any regular, special, or other meeting of council of a local board or of a committee of either of them where A, a quorum of members is present, and B, members discuss or otherwise deal with any matter in a way that materially advances the business or decision-making of the council, local board, or committee. We want to draw attention to a specific point around group email discussions. So if you send an email out to your entire board and committee and it materially advances the business, that constitutes a meeting. And it should not occur because it cannot meet the criteria for open meetings. So also to further this point, there are times where, we use the town hall for budget, say last year or two years ago now. Wow. That all of the councilors were in the same room together because it was an event that we put on and we were trying to get the public to come and talk about budget, but they were all in the same room. So if they materially advance the business of council, then they're technically in a meeting. So we don't want to do that. Oftentimes what I'll do is if I'm sending out information to the board or committee that I'm dealing with, I will just blind carbon copy them all so that when you reply all, it doesn't reply to the group. So if someone has a specific question for you to be brought up at the meeting, they'll just reply to you. So that's one way you can ensure the group emails don't happen. Open meetings. So meetings shall be open to the public and no person shall be excluded therefrom except for improper conduct. And it's interesting because we used to have meetings and you always think about shutting the door for noise, right? But in practice over time, I learned to keep the doors open as well for the meetings to make sure that people feel welcome to come into the room. Amendment to the Municipal Act allows for electronic participation, and certainly at the end of the presentation, if you have any questions about that, we'll be happy to discuss. I know Frank Clutchmillia from IT is on the line as well, so we'll be able to tap into his perspective. Notice of meetings is published on the city website, including agendas and minutes. So anything, we'll get into it in greater detail in a little bit. But basically, the notice of the meeting and when it's happening should be published well in advance of the meeting, as far in advance as you can, just for the public and media to be able to know the meeting is happening. The public may record by video or audio, but they're there to observe only. So there are members of the media who have come to some of my meetings and just sit in a chair in the back, and we'll put an audio recording device on and record the meeting, and they observe. And then when the meeting is done, the meeting concludes and they leave. Subcommittees are subject to the same procedural bylaw and open meeting provisions. So a lot of committees will have subcommittees. They still need to follow these procedural bylaw provisions.
So there are certain provisions to go into closed session, and what we've done in the slide is just pasted in section 239(2) of the Municipal Act. And I would lead out with anytime you have a question about closed, and if you can properly go into closed, reach out to us. We're happy to help you out in trying to figure out if you fit into these categories. So briefly, there are security of property, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including employees, proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land. We just had a discussion yesterday that we'd prefer if that said property, so it could extend to assets that aren't land. However, that's what it is. Labor relations or employee negotiations, litigation or potential litigation, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, a matter in respect of which a council, board or committee or other body may hold a closed meeting under any other act. So if there's another statutory provision, information, these next ones have been added more recently. So information explicitly supplied in confidence by Canada, a province, territory, or crown agency, a trade secret or scientific, lots of words, but that's third party confidentiality, or a trade secret that belongs to the municipality or the board and has a monetary value or potential monetary value. And then K, position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to negotiations, which is quite broad. We want to be careful because we don't want to try to manipulate things into closed, which ought not be. And the other thing I just wanted to mention about closed meetings is it's not mandatory that you go into closed. So when we talk about the section of the Act being permissive as opposed to prescriptive, it means you may close your meeting for those reasons. It doesn't mean that you have to. So there may be cases where it could fall under one of those sections, but it doesn't have to. And my advice is always, if you can be open at all, be open.
And I think this it leads really well into the next point around exceptions for educational or training opportunities, because we look at things like, I even want to say the strategic plan session we had more than a few months ago, but we want to keep it open, and invited the the public and media to be able to observe, and it was a really great event. So, but there is an exception for educational and training, education and training. A meeting of council or local board or of a committee of either of them may be closed to the public if the following conditions are both satisfied. A, the meeting is held for the purpose of educating or training the members. At the meeting, no member discusses or otherwise deals with any matter in a way that materially advances the business or decision-making of the council, local board, or committee.
Just on that, I would just reiterate that even though you can go into closed for an education or training session, my general advice would be don't, unless it's particularly sensitive or something like that. Generally, the media attends and finds it dead boring, and off you go. So with respect to closed meeting investigations, the Municipal Act provides that a person can request an investigation by the ombudsman as to whether the council or the board or committee had met improperly in closed session, in which case the ombudsman does an investigation and provides a report, which is published on their website as well as on the council agenda, and will make recommendations if it's found that the council, board, or committee has met improperly in closed session. In which case the council or the board has to pass a resolution as to how it intends to address that report. We've recently been through an ombudsman investigation. It's no fun. It's no fun even when you know you're right. I can imagine it's less fun if you were wrong. And in the case, we expect the report to be coming shortly with respect to the investigation that's just completed. It was found that council did not meet improperly in closed. However, the report is going to have recommendations regardless. So I would just like to emphasize to the resources to boards and committees, pay attention to the closed meeting provisions, because if you are going into closed and it's found to be improper, it's quite embarrassing.
So agendas, the agendas are set by the chair in consultation with staff resource. It's posted to the city website at least 24 hours in advance. We're recommending in a week if possible, including all attachments. So I wanted to make a note here that anything that will be distributed to the board and committee members should also be available to the public on the website. We are looking at increasing our use of eScribe for boards and committees. We do have a few staff members who are going to look into using it so that we can create documents that are a bit more accessible. So if anyone is interested in learning how to use eScribe for their board and committee agendas, please reach out to us and perhaps we can have a bigger training session at a later date on that one. So. Business considered in order set forth on agenda, so the chair may vary the order. A member may ask that a motion is placed on the agenda provided they have a seconder, and documents must be accessible. And again, just speaking to that, we did have some training for documents, making documents more accessible and have those recorded. And if anyone would like to view them, we certainly can pass you the link. We will be giving the link to all staff members on that as well. I want to just make mention here. We do have Nancy Scott on the line as well, and we're going to be working with Nancy in the next little while to record the accessibility training portion that all board and committee members need to participate in. So at the end of the presentation too, I can let Nancy speak to that if she'd like. But basically, we're going to do the same thing where we'll engage Nancy, we'll record the video, and then we'll pass it along as long as we make sure that there's some sort of record of who has participated in that training. So we'll also be working on that in the next few weeks.
So the procedure bylaw sets out rules of conduct and debate, and if you look at the procedure bylaw, it's quite detailed in terms of orders of precedence for motions and who gets to speak and for how long. Generally speaking, board and committee meetings are held in committee of the whole. And what happens with committee of the whole, it allows the rules to be relaxed. So you don't need to be as formal and restrictive as you would when you're not in committee of the whole. So for your board and committee meetings, I think that you generally aren't, replying to, to the member through the chair and that sort of thing. It's generally a more relaxed discussion. But you will note in the procedure bylaw that what we've done is set out what orders of precedence are and the more rigid rules, if you will.
Conduct of members. So a member shall not disobey the provisions of this bylaw or decision of the chair on questions of order or practice, or upon the interpretation of the rules of procedure, or breach parliamentary decorum, use disrespectful or defamatory speech, and make irrelevant remarks. So that one in particular, the topic at hand, all the remarks should be relevant to that topic and not go off onto different subject matters.
Were that only ever so, right? So motions should be made in writing. So as much as we're saying that your rules of procedure are more relaxed, generally speaking, you do not want things to come from the floor that haven't been on the agenda that all members are aware of. So motions should be in writing. The operative clause commences with the words resolved that, and a motion should have a mover and a seconder. And a member who wishes to introduce a motion that's not on the agenda, if that motion is a substantive nature, it needs to be introduced as a notice of motion. So it would go on, say, today's meeting to say, this is my notice of motion that I want to bring this motion to the next meeting, so that you're not putting substantive items on an agenda or on the meeting that haven't been on the agenda, and both the public and other members be aware.
Rachel, is it I didn't know if maybe you want to talk about motions or not having motions enclosed. Maybe you want to speak to that?
Sure. I didn't know if we talked about that. Oh, we're going to our voting screen anyway. Yeah, we don't have votes in closed. It's just direction to staff in closed. So you would not have a motion in a closed session.
So voting, all votes are in open, going off of what Rachel was saying, and no secret ballots. So all of the votes need to be open. The chair of the board and committee does vote. The recorded vote where everyone votes, there's no, you don't abstain. So again, everyone needs to vote. The only time you wouldn't, and we're going to get into it in a little bit, is if you declare a conflict of interest on the vote, or if you're not present. The tied vote, and a tied vote is defeated.
So when we speak to finality of the vote, so subject to a motion to reconsider, a motion once decided cannot be introduced for 12 months. So that's to prevent going back over the same issue over and over again. Having said that, if a motion to reconsider is passed, then the matter can be reintroduced. So if there is a motion to reconsider, it must be moved by a member who voted with the prevailing side. So the side that won, and seconded either by a member who also voted for the prevailing side, or a member who is absent can second the motion to reconsider. The member who's absent cannot, however, move the motion to reconsider. Certainly anytime if you find yourself in that situation and you've got questions or concerns around it, don't hesitate to reach out and we'll help you walk through it.
So quorum, the mayor is an ex officio, a member of all boards and committees, but not counted in quorum. No business shall be considered unless a quorum is present. Quorum is a majority of members, and if lost during the meeting ends. The only sort of caveat to that is quorum is not lost by virtue of declaration of conflict of interest. So you would still have quorum if someone declared a conflict of interest and couldn't vote. Yeah, quorum is essential, and you can't further the business along if quorum is not there. And administrative, I wanted to speak to this slide just because I was the staff resource for the Environmental Initiatives Committee for many years. So part of that role was to keep minutes. And there's a lot of questions about minutes, and certainly we could provide guidance at any point in time if you'd like. We state here, record without note or comment. So minutes are the record of the meeting and the decisions that were made, and do not need or require sort of a dialogue in them. I do see minutes come across my desk often where there's lots and lots and lots of dialogue around everything that happened. You don't need to do that. It just needs to be recorded without note or comment and just record the decisions and the outcomes of the meeting. Provide notice of meetings. So the staff resource will, arrange the meetings and send notices out and work with other staff in the building to make sure, rooms are booked and technology is acquired. Post minutes and agenda to the website, and you can forward those over to Jordan Allard as soon as they're available, and he can post them. He's in our communications office, and perform clerical functions as required.
So now we get into the fun stuff under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. So the Act does apply to all board and committee members as well as to members of council. So where a member has a pecuniary, so we like to say financial interest, whether it's direct or indirect, and they're present at a meeting where the matter is subject to consideration, the member shall disclose the interest and the general nature thereof before the matter is considered, shall not take part in the discussion or vote. And there have been relatively recent amendments that require a written disclosure. So we have disclosure forms. I'm not sure whether they've been circulated to the staff resources, but it used to be that the member could just orally indicate their conflict that would then be recorded in the minutes. Now there has to be a written disclosure, and that also is a registry so that the public would be able to access that. And it's also significant that the member shall not attempt in any way, either before, during, or after the meeting, to influence the voting. And that interest also would extend to the interest of family members. Next slide. Oh, she left.
Oh, sorry.
So in an open meeting where a member has a conflict, they can stay in the meeting. They just can't participate. And often you'll see members, even though in an open meeting, they can stay for optics. A lot of time the members will leave the room. Where the meeting is closed, the member must leave the room. And if a member's absent from a meeting that had an item that they had a conflict on, they need to declare that at the first meeting they attend afterwards. So just because they weren't there doesn't mean they don't declare that conflict. And as I said, that disclosure is recorded in the minutes. And as Madison alluded to, the quorum is deemed constituted even if it's lost as a result of declared conflict. So if I have my quorum and I have more people declaring conflicts than would be quorum, it doesn't mean that the meeting ends. As long as I still have 2 people, then quorum is deemed constituted. And I just wanted to point out, because the Act talks about direct or indirect pecuniary interests. So when they're talking about indirect, they're talking about if the member is a shareholder or has some sort of controlling interest, or is a director of a corporation, is a member of a body that has a pecuniary interest, or a partner. So where the direct is a direct financial impact, this just shows you, just because it's a corporate entity doesn't mean that you don't have a pecuniary interest. And next slide. There are some exceptions. So you may have a conflict, but if you have that conflict that is in common with the other electors generally, you still are able to vote on the matter. And the other exception is if it's so remote or insignificant that it can't be reasonably regarded as likely to influence the member, then the member doesn't need to declare. And as well, I would say that if you or your members have any questions with respect to Conflict of Interest Act, feel free to reach out, and we'll try to provide guidance.
So code of conduct, the Municipal Act requires that a code of conduct be established for municipal councils, advisory committees, and local boards. And it addresses gifts and benefits, confidentiality, use of board property, influence on staff, and improper use of influence. Complaints alleging violation are investigated by the Integrity Commissioner, and results of the inquiry reported to both council and the local board or committee. And Rachel and I are currently looking at the code of conduct. I'm learning more about it, and certainly can provide you the website to access it. And if you have any questions about that, you can certainly give us a shout. And communications and surveys. So there's often times that you know, a board or committee want to get either public or perhaps even staff's input on things. And in some instances, you know, that's fine, but we just wanted to point out as well that boards and committees are subordinate and accountable to City Council. So statements that are critical of City Council or its members are not appropriate, and surveys welcoming such input are not appropriate. So as much as there are sometimes where you want to get public input, just ensure you know, the wording is appropriate, and if you need any help with that, certainly you know, let us know. And you know, I'm doing a survey right now, not necessarily for a board and committee, but I am working on a survey right now for a project, and working with our communications team quite closely to ensure that, you know, the wording is right and the questions are easily understood, and how to gather that and interpret the results. So we appreciate any feedback on that, but just wanted to highlight that as well. So I'm going to stop sharing and stop the recording, and then we'll answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Jonathan. So I'm just going to move forward here with pointing out the 3 areas that really jumped out at me where we need to change our process just a little bit. The first would be agenda items. Those items that committee members would like added to the agenda will need a seconder, and it would be best if we could get them about 1 week in advance of the meeting. That way I can have that agenda prepared and all the background material to Jordan at City Hall, so he can post it to the city's website with the proper notice. Next would be motions. The motions must be in writing. They need a mover and a seconder. And anything that comes up at a meeting can't move forward with a motion. It would have to be a notice of motion and will be dealt with at the next meeting. It will be dealt with at the next meeting. So then it can be added to the agenda so the public can see what we're addressing at each meeting moving forward. And then voting. So voting is all open voting. There's no secret ballot voting. And there will be no abstaining from voting unless, of course, you have a conflict. So now we'll move on to elections. So at this meeting, we'll need to have an election for AAC chair, the AAC vice chair, and the AAC site plan. I've left Anne Marie or considered, maybe I should check on this, but because that committee hasn't started and she stepped up to be the chair, I think we'll just leave that be until we discuss it at the next meeting, and then we'll deal with that if we need to at the time. So at this point, I would like to put it forward for nominations for the position of Accessibility Advisory Committee Chair. And I think if anybody has anyone they'd like to nominate, they should just maybe unmute and speak up, because I can't see everyone on the screen at the same time here. So nominations.
This is Derek here. I would like to put my name forward.
Okay, Derek, for the position of the chair of the Accessibility Advisory Committee?
Yes.
We have a seconder.
I would second that.
Lisa?
Yes.
Okay. Other nominations for the position of AAC chair?
Hi, Nancy, it's Diane. I'd like to nominate Shirley if she would allow to have her name stand.
I respectfully decline. I am in full support of Accessibility Committee, but I truly feel there might be a bit of a conflict of interest with definitely my position here at the hospital and really wanting to push forward the things that I need to push forward for the community. I know that's the job of everyone here, but I respectfully decline. Thank you, Diane.
So any other nominations for the position of Accessibility Advisory Committee Chair?
It's Shirley, and I haven't had a chance to talk to this individual. I would love it if Don Calvert would allow his name to stand, because I think he exemplifies what the chair would require, as well as any of the other people who've been nominated. So I'm nominating Don Calvert.
Don Calvert, will you have your name stand?
I respectfully decline. I've got my fingers in a lot of different pies right now. And thank you, Shirley, though. I appreciate that.
Nancy, I'd like to nominate Shannon Gowen.
All right, Marchie. Shannon, will you have your name stand?
Yes.
Okay. I'm trailing off on all my statements because I'm documenting as we go along. Do we have a seconder for that nomination?
It's Shirley. I'd like to second that nomination.
Thank you, Shirley. Any other nominations for the position of AAC chair? I'm taking the silence as we're done with the nominations. Okay, so we have Derek standing and Shannon both with their names forward for chair. So we will have to do a vote. And I will go through and we'll have to do I think they call it a straw poll, where I call out the names and you'll have to state whether you vote for Derek or Shannon for the position of AAC chair. So I'll start with Margie Bruni.
I nominated Shannon, so I'll stay
Right.
with Shannon.
Okay. Lisa.
I nominated Derek. I will stay with Derek. Thank you.
Anne Marie.
I nominate Derek.
Derek. Don Calvert.
I side with Shannon.
Vote for Shannon. Jordan.
I vote for Derek.
Denise.
I vote for Shannon.
Shannon.
We're allowed to vote for ourselves?
Yes, for sure.
Okay, I vote for myself.
Yes. Craig.
I will support Shannon Gowen.
Derek.
I support myself.
Okie doke. Carol.
I vote for Shannon.
Diane Morrell.
Shannon, please.
And Shirley.
Shannon, please, and thank you.
Okay, Shannon, you've been elected the new chair of the Accessibility Advisory Committee. We'll do the other election. I'll complete the other elections just because of this virtual situation we have and not knowing obviously who is going to be chair. Then we can just, I don't know if you have an agenda in front of you, Shannon, but typically it's at this point that you would take over the meeting. I can certainly continue through this meeting for the time being, if you're not in a position right there because of the situation to take over. So you can just let me know.
I'd appreciate that. I'm on Zoom on my phone and I don't have a printed agenda in front of me.
Okay. We'll make sure that we're well prepared for the April 14th meeting. So now I would like to accept nominations for the position of Accessibility Advisory Committee Vice Chair.
It's Derek again. I would like to put my name forward for Vice Chair.
Okie doke. A seconder.
I would second Derek for Vice Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Their nominations for Vice Chair.
I'd like to nominate Craig, if Craig would allow his name to stand.
Craig?
Nancy, I'm going to respectfully decline. Thank you, Diane, for the opportunity. I again have other irons in the fire, and I wouldn't want to spread myself too thin.
Okay, thank you. Any other nominations?
I wonder if one of our new members would allow their name to stand as vice chair, Jordan or Carol?
This is Carol. I'm not experienced enough. This is my first year. So I think I'd rather wait until I know exactly how everything's run. Thank you anyway.
Yes, I'm in the same boat. Thank you for the recommendation, but I think I would rather get my feet wet a bit and then go from there.
Totally understand. Thank you both, though.
Okay, are there any other nominations for vice chair? All right, Derek, it seems that you will be acclaimed as vice chair of the Accessibility Advisory Committee.
Thank you. Congratulations to Shannon, by the way.
Yes.
Thanks, Derek. We'll make a great team.
Okay.
All right, moving on to the position for Accessibility Advisory Committee Site Plan Chair. So for the benefit of the new members, I spoke a little bit about site plans earlier on in one of the members' membership responsibilities. The Site Plan Subcommittee will look at developments in the city, normally apartment buildings, or if there's anything bigger like schools, or in the past it was hospitals, or that kind of thing that goes through the building and then the planning department. So that committee can meet as often as once a week. There hasn't been any meetings due to this situation, and we haven't had any big items come in. It's primarily been rezonings, as you'll see from the site plan report that Diane sent out. But at times it is more active, and I don't know if we'll get back to regular virtual meetings. Well, if something of substance comes up, I guess, beyond our rezoning. But that usually, Diane, we were meeting once or twice a month with the committee here at the office when site plans came in. I think that might be, and usually that was a half hour to a 45-minute meeting, just so you know what might be entailed when we get back to working like we normally do. So I would like to accept nominations now for the site plan chair position.
I'll nominate Diane Morrell if she'll consider standing for another term.
Thank you. Yes, I'd like to allow my name to stand.
Thank you. A seconder for that?
I will second Diane. Thank you.
Any other nominations for the position of site plan chair? All right. Diane, you've been acclaimed and returning to the position of site plan chair. And we will continue on. I guess it's on to the regular meeting kind of portion that Shannon would normally be. So I don't know if you have any comments. Shannon, do you have any comments you'd like to make before we get moving on?
No.
Okay. So because you don't have the agenda in front of you, it was November 4th was the last meeting. I sent out the minutes and I hope everyone got a chance to look at it. We dealt with a few things at that meeting. So I guess we would need a motion to accept those minutes.
I accept it. I'll move it. Marchie.
And a seconder.
I will second it.
Thank you. And then,
Nancy, I have a question, and I think it's procedural. Is there a, when we're going through the minutes from the last meeting, is there a point where there's any possibility of discussion of old business, what happened with you know, whatever the question or whatever the discussion was there any follow-up from that?
Is it something that was just well, let's just explore it. What were you? I think what I've learned from the training I did with the procedural, the meeting training that you just viewed was that there's a lot more kind of discussion items in the minutes than I'm probably supposed to be putting in. So, but those are things that certainly we want to deal with. So if you have something you'd like to discuss, I have no qualms with doing it at this point.
I think it probably had more to do with the Bellevue splash pad. We talked, again, our minutes are a little bit more discussion-like rather than, you know, brief topics. But we talked about consider having a water wheelchair on site available to children to use in the splash pad.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure where any follow-up on that
Mm-hmm.
belongs, if that's in like budget items, or I guess I'm looking for guidance on that.
Right. The feedback, and I don't, I forwarded this to Virginia. The parking is going to be brought. So there were the 4 items. There was the parking, and that's going to be brought to the way it needs to be. The curb cut in that one section, so it goes right up on the path. The threshold ramp at the restroom, they have that on the list to do. The water wheelchair, it was discussed, but there was going to be no staff there. So there wasn't really an avenue to have something available. So I don't know if we can look at that, or I can get some more information. I don't know if it could be kept in a different area. I'm not even sure about concessions. And this year might be a different year than in a year to come. But it's definitely on my list here. But at the time, their response was there wasn't staff there. So there wasn't nobody really to monitor it. So that's where that stood or stands right now anyway.
And excuse me, Nancy. It's Derek here.
Go ahead.
Just want to let you guys know too, with COVID, one of my questions, because you asked for feedback, one of my questions was how is that going to be maintained, cleaned? Because it's got to be cleaned after we use. So somebody uses it, who cleans it?
Right. Well, can you hear me?
I can now. Yep.
Okay, I was getting some feedback there. I'm not sure if you were hearing that. Of course, Derek, anything that is done in the city moving forward will be absolutely done to the COVID cleaning requirements. I think the city's going above and beyond, and the screening and the cleaning and all of those things. So it certainly would be clean to the standard it needed to be. But I don't think for this season we'd be looking at getting one out anyway. But it's something that could certainly remain on the on the list of things. If the situation changes there and there's staff on site at the water park, it might be able to change. Is that?
May I ask a question?
Sure.
You talked about accessible taxis earlier. I heard that UCAB has an accessible taxi, but I don't know that definitively. I was just wondering if you knew which companies have accessible cabs available and their hours of operation.
Nancy, if I can jump in, I know Sioux Yellow Cab has from 9 to 5. They have a wheelchair van on the road at all times during the day, but it seems like right now they're having problems getting. The last time I spoke to them, they were having trouble getting evening and weekends covered. So they do have one from 9 to 5, and then after 5, that's it.
Okay, I'll just add to that. I haven't heard back from city police on this in the last little bit. Taxis, regular taxi companies are required by the taxi bylaw to have a wheelchair accessible taxi running the same hours as their other taxis. I know there's been issues about this. Like I said earlier, I want to hear about the time and the date so I can report that to city police. As far as UCAB, Dawn, I hadn't heard about that. So I'm glad to hear, because it wasn't made a requirement in the same way as it was with the other taxi companies, which upset them. So I haven't heard about a change. I'm happy to hear that they may have a cab, and I can do some research and get the hours. But Derek talked about Yellow having one 9 to 5. That's not the way it's supposed to be. Any traditional taxi company is supposed to have one taxi running the same number of hours as the other services offered. So we'll have to do some research on that.
Yeah, the reason I asked is because I start work either at 6, 7, or at the latest 8 o'clock. And I'm usually off at 8 in the evening. So if I have a wheelchair accessible van that I drive, if that's not able, if it's broken down, I don't really have an alternative to get to work.
Right.
Nancy, it's Shirley. My understanding that UCAB is the previous union cab. So, and I think one of the emails that I sent you a little while back indicated that the hours of operation for UCAB for their one wheelchair cab was 7 a.m. And I think they are available till midnight, because both cab companies are only operating till midnight. Derek is accurate with what Sue Yellow Cab's hours are. However, having a driver that's been approved and appropriate for driving the UCAB availability of the appropriate driver may be an issue, especially with COVID. The pandemic has certainly impacted every industry in Sault Ste. Marie, including our cabs. So they don't have the same numbers of cab drivers that they have previously been accustomed to. So the availability of the wheelchair cab can be an issue, depending on the day, depending on what resources are there.
To you, Madam Chair, to Shirley. Yes, Shirley. Yellow Cab does run till midnight. But like I said, the wheelchair cabs right now, they, like you said, because of COVID and everything, they don't have an evening driver on. The last time I spoke to them, they didn't. So.
Okay, well, it's Nancy here, and how about you leave this with me, and I'll do some research in the next few days on cabs and what's happening, and track down Ray at City Police, and we'll get some feedback. It's certainly not meeting the needs of the community, and I do believe cutbacks due to COVID have something to do with that. But we do have a bylaw, a taxi bylaw, that they should be adhering to. So I'll take this information and I'll send an email out. I'm not sure it needs, maybe it could be an agenda item, or I'll see what I can find out, and I'll email the committee with my findings. Was there anything else on the November minutes? Okay, I guess we'd be looking for declarations of conflict of interest at this point. Are you able to hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I just I had a thing come up that said my something was up with my microphone, so. Okay, so no conflicts of interest?
No, sorry, Nancy, do we have to have an approval, a formal approval vote for the minutes?
Oh, yeah, sorry, we got off there. We had Marchie motion to accept them, Denise seconded, and now we need to vote for accepting the minutes.
Aye.
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 All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Shirley's in favor as well.
Is there anyone opposed? Okay, thank you. I'm looking at the time here. We have two items of new business, and I think I can get through the first one. We have folks joining us at 3:30 to discuss the second one. So I'll move on to new business and review of the 2021-25 to 2025 barrier removal items as soon as I can find them. It was just sitting right in front of me. Excuse me, sorry. Of course. Papers on my desk. There they are. So I'll start by saying at the November meeting, I asked for Accessibility Advisory Committee input on barrier removal items that will be in the plan for the next 5 years as well, for the benefit of the new members. The Accessibility Advisor, or not the Accessibility Advisory Committee, the City of Sault Ste. Marie sets aside $85,000 that this office, with consultation with the Accessibility Advisory Committee and city departments, sets aside or uses that money to remove barriers in the community. That's different from what other city departments have to do as far as the legislation is concerned. Of that 85,000, there's items that are earmarked every year. So, for example, $20,000 goes to support the Vulnerable Persons Registry. That's a registry that will assist people that are vulnerable in the event of an emergency. That's a commitment that the city made at the beginning of the Vulnerable Persons Registry, and that will continue for all time to support that program in the community. Also, we have $10,000 that goes to curb cut improvements. That's whereby members of the community or members of the Accessibility Advisory Committee will let me know where there's issues at corners, where the curbs are in bad state of disrepair, or if there is none at all. And the concrete division of the Public Works will do some added work to improve the curb cuts. And then, excuse me, accessible pedestrian signals, $10,000 to them as well. That'll likely be changing this year moving forward. In the past, it was for the audible chirping sound. And now there's more technology and smartphones and different things that we're looking at. We were just about to get into a pilot project with a company, and they've sold off their business. So we're just trying to get more information on that. So that's the 20 to the VPR, 10 to curb cuts, 10 to the pedestrian signals, and then 2,000 to the John Rhodes Community Center, which is sometimes it's stuff for sledge on the arena side, and some stuff for the pool side too. In fact, they were just got new batteries for their lifts the other day. So there's a few lifts over there that are in the special rooms to lift people from their mobility devices to get into the water wheelchairs. They have a few different water wheelchairs. So we support the ongoing make excuse me, maintenance and having that equipment available. So those were the things that are moving forward. They've been on the list for many years. And then also in November, I sent out a request to all city departments if they had any input on areas that fall under their purview where they could benefit from funds to remove barriers. We had a request from the clerk's office that they were requesting $6,000 yearly to cover half the cost for closed captioning of the city council meetings. So that's been a issue that's been talked about many times over the year. And as we know, most things come down to finances, and they figure that if this budget were to cover half of it, that they could get that going. So that's something that was put forward by city staff. Also, city staff was discussed, and I think I brought it up to you. I had talked to a department prior to the November meeting. Parks Division would like $5,000 so they can add one accessible swing and one musical instrument to existing playgrounds yearly. So I believe that the last accessibility advisory committee was all on board with that when I brought that one up. So that was one that I had already heard about, and that would be $5,000. IT had requested funds for training up staff, but that was turned down. And IT is going to, and did actually train a lot of staff in creating accessible documents. We went through that a few weeks back, so that came in, but they've taken care of that on their own. And then PWT had brought forward the fact that they'd been contacted many times about putting pathways at Bellevue Park on Topsail Island. So in the absence of a committee at the time, and knowing that our accessibility reserves was going to go above the 85,000 and that money would have been lost, we decided to move forward with a report to council. And it was approved by council January 25th. So 1.62 kilometers of walkway that is 2.5 meters wide will be added all the way around Topsail Island, which is the island, if you don't know, at the down at the waterfront of Bellevue Park off the parking lot. They're going to be moving forward with that walkway and repairing a little bit of walkway, I believe, along the other side that has been damaged by the high water. That is being funded. Let me just get this right here. There was $57,500 left from last year's budget. There was a plan for some accessible seating at the John Road Center. They couldn't get proper seating in. Just as a side note, we now have an architect that deals with accessible arenas, looking at that and costing that out. And I plan on bringing that forward, the information on that, to be covered maybe in 2022 from this budget. But they're putting together a report right now on a cost on putting accessible seating at the end of the one arena here. But because that money was unused, there was $57,500 that remained in last year's budget. And adding $67,500 from the barrier removal budget, which had accumulated over the last few years, that will get this project done. So that will be moving forward. At our next meeting, we will likely have city staff here to give input on the actual paths. Like I have mentioned to them, like, well, for sure you'd want benches, and we need good accessible parking there, even though it isn't a paved lot. I think there still should be signage because it gets pretty busy down there. And if you have, so we can look at what can be done there. So they will be coming to next meeting to get input on the paths. So that's proceeding with money that was there. So that's not using anything moving forward from 2021. So those are the items. With the clerk's request and with the playground request and what stands, the total is $53,000 and there is $85,000 available yearly. So I still want input from the committee so we can look and get pricing or consider different items moving forward for barrier removal in the community. So at this point, I would like to get feedback on barrier removal items. Is there anything anybody would like to, or you can think about it and give me a call and I can certainly add it to the list. Is there anything anybody would like me to add or consider or investigate at this point?
Nancy, this is Derek.
Go ahead, Derek.
Okay, I'm finding that the elevator button at the GFL Memorial Gardens is where it is, it's too small, like, because there's wheelchairs there, barriers there, like wheelchairs on the bottom where you go into the VIP entrance. Where that has to be looked at, where we can, because not all the time I have a person that can open me the elevator door, so I need to get close to that button to get on the elevator and upstairs to the concourse.
Okay. I've added that to the list. I think that's something that the gardens can look at. So I'll add that to the list and see what they can do about that.
Okay, and if you can put my phone number beside that so they can call me, and
I have your phone number, Derek. So yeah.
Okay, no, but if they need clarification.
Yeah, I don't think we want to broadcast your phone number over our YouTube live stream. I can add your phone number.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else?
It's Diane here.
Okay.
What about better accessibility at Pointe du Chêne if that ends up moving forward as a city operated kind of facility?
Pointe du Chêne we will for sure be talking about at the next meeting. It seems like I'm putting everything off, but that's not the case. They've just applied for a grant and hope to receive a grant. I just provided them with a letter of support from my office. So it's unknown what's happening right there. The only thing that is definitely happening as it stands now is the addition of porta potties, and I've let them know that there has to be also an accessible porta potty. There's no running water due to the water situation out there, but there is a plan if they can get financial support to make some additions out there. So I have it planned, and I've added it to the agenda to have some representation and for them to receive feedback on what we think or what the Accessibility Advisory Committee thinks should be added or improved out at Pointe du Chêne.
Derek, here I got a thing for you. Just so you are aware, Nancy, when an electric wheelchair goes on the beach, we do have to make sure that there's mats out there as well, because the mats won't make the electric wheelchair or wheelchair person get stuck.
I have added the rubber matting, and there's a chair that's called a Moby chair, that's a water wheelchair and transportation chair. So I have a little list that I've started, and I think it would be great spending of the barrier removal funds. It just so much of that depends on whether the area is going to have staff, and we need to get more information, but I'm sure we can get some more solid information on that at the next meeting in April.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. I see that. Is there anything else?
Question about budget and some of the spending. Will we get a draft print version of all of this? I tried to jot down numbers and whatnot, but it would be easier for me to be able to read over a draft version before we've got a final plan.
Oh, for sure. Yep, I can send that out. I have it here.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
I see, I don't want to cut anyone off, and we can certainly come back to other items, but I see that Travis Anderson, who's the Director of Tourism and Community Development, and Virginia McLeod, that is the Manager of Recreation and Culture, and they're here to chat with us about some docks that are going to be added along the waterfront, and receive feedback. So maybe we'll open it up to them, and then if there's anything else, we can come back to other items after.
Thanks, Nancy. Hi, everyone. I'm Travis Anderson. I'm the Director of Tourism and Community Development for the City of Sault Ste. Marie. And joining me today is Virginia McLeod, who I believe you guys have all met probably on numerous occasions. But Virginia and I are working together on a joint initiative. We're looking at installing a kayak dock just adjacent to the Pine Street Marina, closer to there's a Sioux Naturalist lookout on the east end of the parking lot near the Pine Street Marina. And we're currently working on plans to install a fully accessible kayak dock there. And I think perhaps the easiest thing to do to kind of describe exactly what we're looking at is I found a YouTube video of the type of dock that we're proposing to install. And maybe what I'll do, Nancy, is I'll try to share my screen here and maybe show that brief video. And then Virginia and I can both answer any questions that come up.
Sure.
So I'm just going to do this. Can everybody see the screenshot of the video at this point?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the system that we're looking at is an easy dock system. You would be able to come out onto the dock system. There's this little bench seating right here. Just pause that for a second. And then there's an ability to pull out a little kind of temporary bench, which will hover the individual directly over their kayak. And then there's obviously there's railings and support in order to actually get into that kayak. And I'll continue to play this. So once in, there's a roller system that allows people to roll directly out into the water. Sorry, the video's a little bit quicker than maybe I'd like, but I think it gives a good representation of how this system could work. I'll just let it play a little bit longer here. And then as you approach the system as well, from the water, the way that it's structured is you're able to paddle directly up on there and then use the railings to pull up into the location. I'll let this play a little bit longer. That's probably sufficient here. That gives you a little synopsis of the system that we're looking to install. Sorry, I'm just trying to, having Zoom difficulties here. Usually pretty good at this, but yeah, does anybody have any specific questions relative to what we're hoping to achieve here? Nancy, are there any items on your side that you're hoping to get more information on?
Yeah, I was wondering, was it one or two? Were you looking at, I thought maybe there were 2 locations, or is the plan just 1 location?
Yeah, we were, Virginia, I don't know if you want to speak to the matters related to the Bondar Marina.
Yep.
Yeah.
I can speak to it. So we were looking, we have 2 locations. There's already existing infrastructure that's located at Roberta Bondar Marina, which the docks and all the ramps and everything going down meet accessibility requirements. But there's a low profile dock which has a drop on it. So at that location, we were looking at just a kayak launch just because the distance is a lot further to get in and out. At Bellevue Marina was where we were focusing on the accessible, this easy launch system. Because there's adjacent parking that's probably about 20 feet from the parking lot to where the ramp would start going on to the dock. And so it's really going to be, easily accessible. Parking would be very close nearby. And we were focusing on that location for it to be the accessible location.
It's Nancy. I guess the only point that comes to mind right away for me would be at the Bellevue Marina, where you'll have, it's just this one system at that spot. So that's the more accessible system, or would it be the same system in both locations?
It would just be that system at that location and just a smaller launch at the other location, because it's going to be attached to a low profile platform, which was kind of originally designed for canoes. So there's already a grade drop from the dock system down to the low profile, which would make it, we wouldn't be able to make that portion of that dock accessible there.
Okay, so just for the benefit of the committee, I think there's often some confusion. It's called Bellevue Marina, but it is the marina that's at the end of Pine Street there. That's correct, right?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're kind of interchangeable as how they're referred to.
Right, they're in the same area, but I guess my only point, and the committee probably has, or may have more would be that right in the location of where that's going to be put and the access to it, we should be adding at least 2 accessible parking spots there. So putting up accessible parking signage and getting some spots in there, so people that are wanting to access that can be sure to be parked up close to, or as close as they can be to that spot.
The other addition that we're doing from the parking lot is actually adding in a paved pathway that'll connect the parking lot through to the docking system.
Okay, that's great. And maybe a bench.
Yeah, we can add some benches in. And there's also a really nice viewing platform that is accessible that has some nice benches on it as well. So.
Great. We're big on benches now. Finally, there's benches coming everywhere, and they're a great thing for folks out and about.
So
would it be possible to get a sketch of both areas so we can see the proximity of where things are located? You know, where the accessible kayak launch will be located as compared to where the parking and the, the path of travel. And then like for both locations, that would be helpful to see what that looks like.
We can pull that together. Go ahead, Travis.
Oh, I was just going to say that's something we can pull together.
Nancy, through to you, to our presenters. Have you thought of any, like if somebody needs physical assistance in and out of a kayak, have you thought of doing like a summer camp, or is it just getting the launch there and then working on that aspect after the installation?
Yeah, I can speak a little bit to the funding that we have. So the funding right now is coming through the city share of the municipal accommodation tax. So we have funding strictly right now for what we call either marketing and promotion for tourism or product development. So it would be the physical infrastructure of this facility, you know, meaning that the dock system plus the pathways into this. We don't, with our funding, it's not applicable for programming, but certainly that's something that, you know, as we advance this and see activation, could be something that we discuss further within the city.
Thank you for answering my question.
It's Carol. I've got a question. I don't know if it would go to this, because I do not have a picture of what you're talking about. What about color? What colors would you be using that people can distinguish?
Yeah, it comes in a taupe color. It's not the prettiest color, but it's kind of the standard color of the dock from the dock manufacturer. There are no, there's only one option in terms of what we're able to purchase from the supplier.
Well, just to be able to distinguish the edges of different areas of it, or anything that sticks out or anything like that.
Okay, yeah, I get you. Yeah, we can totally look at highlighting any of those areas of concern.
Okay, thank you.
Just as a note, is there a preferred color that you would like to see?
Bright yellow, something that'll stand out, because if you've got two different similar colors against each other, people can't perceive the depth. So if it's two different colors or a brighter color than the other color, then you know that there's something either behind it or in front of it or where it stops.
Okay, thank you.
Carol, it's Diane here.
Yep.
I'm just going to jump in.
Okay.
The dock themselves, there's one out at GrowCap, I believe it's the same dock that was shown through the video. And it is kind of a yellowy taupey color. So would the black and yellow contrast striping, like almost like a hazard striping, do you think that would provide a relatively good contrast?
It would, now if you put the stripe, okay, black and yellow stripe, now would that be on the ground? Because if you have, let's say, poles, can I use a business for instance, okay? So you go to a store and you got your walkway and you got your yellow stripes on the parking lot. So you're walking to the door, you find the yellow stripes. But depending on what angle you're walking at, then they've got these cement yellow poles to prevent cars from going onto the sidewalk. So depending on what angle you're at, that yellow pole is going to blend into the stripes that are on the ground, and you don't see that pole. So if there's going to be a contrast in color, anything that would be around it would have to contrast against the color that it's against. So you can distinguish that there's a pole there. It's not the same color as, let's say, the lines on the road or something like that.
So maybe when Virginia and, I'm sorry, I see T. Anderson. I don't.
Yeah, sorry, it's Travis.
Travis, thank you. Maybe when you do the drawings, you can do kind of a rough of where you would picture this contrast striping around the edge, or any potential obstacles?
Just on that. So is the primary concern understanding where the edge of the dock may end? Because we are going to have a little barrier around the dock, so you can't just go directly off the dock. I'm just trying to understand the concern so we can address that.
Okay.
I would think a visual barrier would be good, as well as the physical one. But I think, yes, falling off the dock, walking right off of it, or having that hazard, I think that would probably be a concern. And then I think once we get a chance to take a look at what the layout of it looks like, there might be some other things that once, especially Carol takes a look at, or anyone else with vision type of disability, can show us what kind of things we might want to look out for as well.
Sure thing.
Okay.
So if you can send that information to me, I can forward it to the committee and get feedback on it and get it back to you. But Carol, can I just ask a question to be clear? Did you think that the contrast striping should outline the access to it, like where the ramp starts or the outer edge, or do you want to have a bigger idea of understanding of what it is actually before you would answer that question?
I think I'd rather have a better understanding first. I mean, I've been down there over the years, but I mean, I don't, it's been a while and my vision has changed, right? Yeah. So I would rather have a better idea of it first before saying.
Okay.
But I do know that the visual is a big issue with not just me, but with a lot of people, right?
Absolutely.
Now, the thing on the edge of the dock, you said like a little lip or something like that. White cane users, they'd be able to feel that. There'll be railings up, like wheelchairs can't go over that, nothing. It would be totally kind of a bumper.
Yeah, there's a barrier. So as you come out, there's a barrier before you can get onto the actual kayak launch. And what there is there's a bench that extends right over the kayak or presumably a canoe in certain circumstances. So the user is able to get directly onto the boat. You can't roll directly into the area where the kayak would be, because there is a barrier there.
So if somebody is going on there and they happen to trip, they can't fall in, more or less.
Yeah, I mean, they would, if they were to trip on that barrier, they would land on the dry roller area, and then there's a second. So there's a railing closest to the bench, and then there's the area for the kayak, which is on the dry, and then a second railing afterwards.
Okay.
It's a ADA compliant dock system that Easy Dock supplies.
Mm-hmm. Now I know colors, finding your way to it would be good, but like I say, I would have to have a visual of what the whole thing looks like to decide anything else on there. But I know contrast in color makes a big difference.
Okay, so once they get kind of the sketches to me, I can share that with the Accessibility Advisory Committee, and we can get further input on the contrast and other things regarding the dock locations.
Yeah, so we'll get those as soon as we can. We're just still dealing with the suppliers here, but as soon as they're available, we'll be sure to send those over to Nancy.
Thank you. Was there any more questions for Virginia?
You have a date in mind as to when you're going to install this?
Yeah, it's part of the issue that we're dealing with the supplier, but ideally, you know, it'll be in for the springtime, so hopefully around May. But we're just in the process of working through the procurement process here.
Okay, well, if there's nothing else, I'd like to thank Travis and Virginia for joining us today. And I'll share that information when you get it to me, and we'll get I'll pull together the comments and send those off to you as well.
Great. Thanks a lot, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
Best of luck with it.
Thanks.
Okay, and like I said, I'll get that information to you when they get it to me. Moving on, I guess we'd be up to site plan report. Diane, I know you sent that out to everyone. Did you want to say anything more on it, or does anybody have any questions, or do you want to take it from there?
Sure, thanks. Yeah, so I sent it out. This is not exactly the busy time of year, or it has not been the busy time of year for site plan, but I imagine things will be picking up very soon as it enters construction season. So there will be more, you know, more information on every month's site plan report. We did have a committee last year, and I'll have to chat with Nancy procedure about meetings and whatnot. But in the past, it's been open to anyone who wanted to, you know, help and give their ideas, their thoughts on what's going on in site plan. Generally, when I get rezonings, it is exactly that. And I apologize if some of this terminology is not really clear to any of our new members. If anyone would like to chat with me, you're welcome to email me and we can connect and I can fill you in on the process. But we're about trying to identify barriers before they're built and to try and make certainly city-owned buildings that are new going up or being renovated, as well as you know, the large apartment buildings. If we can identify barriers when it's on paper rather than when it's in the built environment, it's much easier to change things there. So that's our goal. So I'll chat with Nancy, and I'm sure there'll be more information coming out about site plan and how we operate, you know, from here on in. Any questions?
Okay, thanks, Diane. Yeah, I think we can just maybe get an email to all the committee members and see if there's interest, and then as these rezonings, because there's very little for you to, you know, just share those with the committee. But if something comes up that's larger, I think we'll have to get some more folks involved in a Zoom meeting or see how that goes anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I did want to give anybody an opportunity to go back because I think I may have cut it short there on barrier removal items. I wanted to make sure that everybody had opportunity for comment prior to Travis and Virginia speaking. So if there is anything else, I can jot those down now. Okay, well, it seems that there isn't anything right now, but I would really strongly encourage if something, if any of the committee members think of anything or if something comes to them in the meantime, certainly don't be waiting till next meeting, which is April 14th. Don't wait for that. Make sure you contact me and I can do some legwork on getting prices or figuring out how we might be able to remove different barriers. But that's it for me. And I think it went fairly well, this meeting, with the elections and getting some videos and input. So I'm happy. And our next meeting is planned for April 14th. It'll be in the same format for sure. It'll be Zoom. I will, if you think of any agenda items, certainly send them to me. They will be needing a seconder, so we'll have to get into the process of doing that. But I can certainly assist with that. If somebody wants to make a motion, I will assist with that too and get that written up for you or written up with you. And we'll just change the way we do a few things and continue to work at removing barriers. So I guess we'd look for a motion to adjourn.
Nancy?
Yes, Eric?
I motion, if there's nothing else, I motion that we adjourn.
Okay, and do we have a seconder?
It's Shirley. I'll second. I have to log out now. Thank you. Take care, everybody. Stay safe. Wash your hands, social distance, all that good stuff.
Take care, everybody.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Nancy.
Okay, take care.
Shannon and Derek.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Now I'm just going to chat in the background here with John. How are we doing?
Good.
Good. Okay. So
should I stop the live stream and the recording now?
Yeah.